everyone. Thanks for listening to DIY for Business. It's Russ and Greg with you. Greg, how's it going?
Like my sign says, life is good.
That totally stands out. I looked over at you and I looked at the life is good before I looked at you.
Yeah, well, the sign smiles for me.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. Okay, so why is life good? What's going on?
I am going to see my daughter this evening down in Las Vegas. And I have not seen her in a little while since our summer vacation together. And I always look forward to spending time with my daughter. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to go down and see her and hang out with her for a week.
And that's Las Vegas. So it's not
And
just the daughter that you're excited about. It's Las Vegas. It's the
there
food.
are a few things I'm looking forward to. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Right, right.
Absolutely.
The new restaurant that you had talked about. We talked about this over on the pickleball show. There's
That's
a new
right.
restaurant that you are excited
There
about.
there is a new Japanese restaurant that opens up tonight, and,
Nice.
hopefully, by the time my plane lands, I can get in there and there's still a table, or they haven't closed yet because my you never know with
You never know
flights
with,
these
with
days.
places these days.
You never know whether you're gonna get delayed and who knows, but hopefully, we're gonna get in there. Either
Nice.
way, we're gonna check it out this week, and I will give you the full report.
That is awesome. Yeah, I had Japanese fried chicken yesterday in Oakland,
Mm.
and it was amazing.
You
It was
told
so
me
good.
about this. That's a restaurant that specializes in Japanese fried chicken because usually there's American fried chicken, Southern fried chicken. Koreans make a fantastic fried chicken, but I'd never heard of a specialty of a Japanese fried chicken.
It's amazing. We've got to go there. We need to make this happen when you get back because you'll love it.
I
I
can't
made
wait.
one mistake. I
You
ordered the
ordered
2-piece.
steak.
No, I ordered a 2-piece. I didn't order enough. I could have
Oh,
I could have doubled that or maybe even tripled that. Yeah, it was delicious. They did a fantastic job at that place. Um, so I went with some of my other beeswax associates, and we were chatting about stuff and did a whole working lunch thing, and it was interesting afterwards. Julian, who's the owner over there at Beeswax,
right?
we go outside and he looks across the street and he's like, "Oh, it's cool that that place is open." He was talking about one of the other restaurants, and
Uh,
oh, and that one too. That's great. My dad used to go there like years ago, and it got me thinking. Like it is so cool, and it's funny that you brought up a second ago of the is the restaurant still going to be around tonight?
yeah,
You know, but it's like it's so cool to see some of these establishments that made it through the pandemic, made it through all these years, and they are still around, they're active. The restaurants were busy that he was pointing out, and I definitely want to try those too, so we'll have to hit those as well. But it's so cool to see that they made it through that, and
right.
it got me sort of wondering on the walk back, why
Hmm.
why them, why did they make it through it? What was the difference? Was it the just the way they run the place? What, I wonder what it was that got the restaurants through there and came out on the other side and they're still strong.
Well, I think one thing is definitely the quality level, right, of the food.
Right.
That goes down, I don't care about anything else. If the quality level goes down, then companies or restaurants are typically gonna close. Because
Right.
my family used to be in the restaurant business, as you know. My grandparents owned a Chinese restaurant in Oakland, so I kinda grew up in that industry. But a big part of it is marketing, right? If they're not
Yeah.
marketing the restaurant and getting the name out there, even if the food is good, a lot of great quality restaurants close just because
Yeah.
they are not good at marketing and getting their message out there. And in today's, marketing world, a lot of it is social media. And if you get the right people talking about your restaurant, I mean, you're going to get
Yeah.
some really good publicity.
Right. Right. Yeah. There was another place that I went to recently that had these little stickers that they were giving out that were kind of hip, cool stickers. And, like people want to throw the stickers on their laptop and stuff. Even little things like that, because you
Sure.
give somebody those stickers and you think, oh, that's old school media. They're going to throw this sticker on their laptop. But guess what? they're going to take a selfie with that, or they're going to, take a photo of it and look at this cool sticker that I got from, whatever. So it's interesting how like even those older forms of media, those older ideas are amplified by social media as well.
Well, you mentioned our pickleball podcast, Third Shot. Shameless plug there.
Of
But
course.
the stickers that we have for that podcast, I hand out at all the courts, and it's inevitable when I go out and play pickleball nowadays, I will see somebody with the Third Shot sticker on their water bottle.
Nice.
Almost every court I go
Very
to
cool.
nowadays. Yeah.
Very cool. That's because you leave like 100 of them behind, so that
Hey, I
the
didn't have
chances
to. We didn't have to go there, but yeah, it doesn't hurt.
are totally. Totally. We'll take a bunch of those to Vegas with you too and pass those
I
out.
always
I'm
do.
sure you're
I
going to be
always do.
playing
We have a
pickleball
pretty
down
good following down in Vegas because I go down
there.
there once in a while and play pickleball. So we do get the Third Shots sightings on the courts
Nice.
there.
Nice. Well, there you go. The grassroots marketing as well is what you're doing over there. So, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, somebody's been listening to us behind the scenes here. Peter Murphy Lewis, or Strategic Pete. What would you like to be called today?
Anything other than Tactical Ted.
Tactical Ted. Yeah, we don't like Tactical Ted.
No, you can call me Peter, Strategic Pete.
All right.
The Murph, whatever.
Oh, I like that.
I
That's
like
cool.
the Murph too. That's
Yeah.
good for it sort of has a Giants feel to it, right? Like Mac and Murph, or
Oh gosh,
right?
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You're going old school there.
I know, right?
Mhm.
So thanks for joining us. We sort of talked in the open there a little about marketing, and I feel like you're a great person to have on the show to talk about that. So why don't you tell the listeners a little about yourself?
Yeah, I started off early as an entrepreneur in the travel industry. When I was 27 years old, moved to South America. That was my first play with my own money at my own company. Was early into ads, early into branding. Kind of company grew up really quickly. Got into New York Times twice with my travel company. Had famous customers like Paul McCartney, Aerosmith came in my office. Beyonce hired us. And that really took off. Grew the company over a couple $1 million in revenue, grew to 4 different cities. And that was kind of my start into entrepreneurship and marketing. Moved back to the US about 4 years ago. And as Greg knows, I think my claim to fame is I live inside of a zoo. I often tell people, I get this when I say this to people in the coast, because I go to the Bay Area quite a bit, and I've just spent time in Boston, and everyone's like, why do you live in Wichita, Kansas? Well, first of all, it's offensive because I'm from Kansas and I love Kansas, and my wife, who's from South America, actually loves living in Wichita and wouldn't move anywhere else. But the real reason I live in Wichita, Kansas is because I live inside of a zoo. Inside of a zoo. There are zebras that are 30 yards from the office, from the microphone that I am speaking with you both right now.
Wow.
Okay, I got 2 questions about this. There's 2 things that come to mind. First of all, noise. Do you hear like the jungle sounds constantly from all the different animals? And smell? Like, obviously not. I've been to a lot of zoos in my life, and not all the zoos smell the greatest at times, depending on which way the wind's blowing. So I'm curious, what's it like living inside of a zoo?
So the answer is there are noises. As you know, Greg, I just turned 44, and one of the things I most enjoy in life is sleeping in a hammock. So for my 44th birthday, I told my wife, honey, I'm going to go sleep outside between 2 trees, and I'm going to enjoy the crickets and the locusts and the night and the sky and the stars, and I'm gonna wake up and read a Kindle and stay in the hammock until you guys wake up. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I started to hear the zebras, and at 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard the lions. So you do hear the animals. Now, there isn't a smell. This is the cleanest zoo that I have ever been in. It is a private zoo that started around breeding back in the 80s, early 90s, and just opened up to the public about 12 or 13 years ago. So in order to be good at breeding endangered animals, you have to be pretty hands-off in terms of keeping people away from them. And also you have to keep them very pristine from hygiene. Otherwise, you're just not going to be successful at breeding.
Well, not only do you live in a zoo, but you do the marketing for the zoo also, right?
Yeah, I started off managing their marketing back in 2020 when I first moved in here, and really grew their PPC, grew their branding, worked with social media, did some of the basics of anything that needs to be done in marketing, creative briefs and calendars, and figuring out what's tactical and what's strategical. And now I work as a strategic consultant with their leadership team.
So that's a big transition from marketing travel to marketing a zoo. How did you make that transition?
It was big difference. I think all you have to do is be better than your competitors.
Right.
And zoo, especially if it's a good zoo, you have such an advantage over any other non-zoo client. You have animals, right? Like what goes viral organically on social media every single day? Cats and dogs, right? Like kitty pics, puppy pics. So being able to scale a brand that's already in the best niche, which is animals, was not as hard as you think. Plus, our competitors, at least in 2020 and still most of them today, don't even have their pixels set up right. Like they're boosting. People are still boosting. I have a client that came to me about 4 or 5 months ago, and they were spending north of $20,000 a month with no tracking, no pixel, and they were doing most of them boosts on when they were on Facebook. So I mean, like you can just be, you can do better than that with $2,000 if you know at least what's working.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's dig in a little bit on the pixels, because maybe some of our audience may not know what you're referring to. Obviously, a lot of clients don't, right? And that's why they're making this mistake. So tell everybody what you mean by setting up the pixels on a website and how that's advantageous.
Yeah, so I'll do the 101 version because never was an expert. I was just the most expert here at the zoo when I set everything up in 2020. And since then, my wife has become the PPC expert in my consultancy, and she's taken over all the PPC. And then I have a person who's in charge of tracking with HubSpot and Google Tag Manager. But the basics is you need to tell Facebook who you are on your website. So when people come from ads, that communicates back to Facebook, and you can determine what's working from those ads. So that's just the simplest way that I can explain it. So for when we started working with this zoo, we were spending money on Facebook and saying, hey, come buy tickets. And we'd spend $1,000. We'd spend $5,000 a month. We'd spend $10,000 a month. And all we really knew is how many people were clicking. Well, once you got the basics set up saying, hey, when people put $200 into their shopping cart and then they click thank you, and then that comes in, now you can say, oh, Facebook, I spent $7 and somebody just gave me $200. And that the basic 101 of that is that's your return on ad spend. Now, since the changes of iOS and Apple and tracking and so forth, tracking's not nearly as good as it used to, or it's at least more complicated, but you can still have leading indicators to let you know if you're heading in the right direction.
One thing that I've always encountered, and I see this a lot, and I'm sure that somebody that's listening to this, and now we're talking about Facebook traffic to your site, I've noticed the time on site with Facebook traffic is always very low. Generally, with the time on site from social media, if you're doing those pixels and you're doing them correctly, that time is going up. A lot of the times you just see, like, I mean, there were campaigns that I've set up that were like, I don't know, you get a 10-second time on site average. It's like, wait, what is happening here? And it's because you haven't done something correctly, and you need to probably seek a pro to help you out to get those set up correctly. I mean, I've seen that so much, especially with the Facebook campaign. So that's why I throw that out there.
Two things that I often offer up for somebody who's kind of lost in this conversation is, one, what you said, hire a pro. It's not nearly as expensive as you think. This is a technical capability that somebody can do as a freelancer, or if you have the budget, hire a team that will do all of it, right? Like when I first got into this game and I didn't know what I was doing, I hired the person I most trusted to do it. And then he watched me go across Google Analytics from page to page to page to see me as a user, watch me put in my credit card and watch that $200 come over and spit it back to Facebook and to Google. So when you have someone you trust who will walk you through that, and they don't have to speak over your head. That's not jargon. Totally. You can see person in Wichita, Kansas is now on this page, is now on this page, is now on this page. They're on the credit card page. You can do that's the first thing. And then right. the second thing is, like, you don't have to be an expert to get started, right? If your product is good, if your sales team is good, if your reviews are good, you don't have to be perfect to get started. You can dabble with 1/10 of what you're going to spend in 2 years to start to figure it out.
Right. And the numbers that you had said earlier, you're spending, $20,000 a month. Now, you're going to get that same effective spend, or, like the same results for a $2,000 a month. It's like, that's when it's time to go to a pro. Once you start getting those higher numbers, it's like, well, okay, I could pay somebody $5,000 a month to spend my $2,000 a month and get the same results that I was spending before for 20,000. Well, I'm saving money and I'm getting the same results. This is great. What else can you do for me?
Yeah, and if your return on ad spend is crazy, right? Like I've had campaigns for the zoo in particular where our return on ad spend was north of 70. Well, then you just need to grow your budget. Like, you just need to blow it up because you're printing cash. And at that time, you have such a great product and such a great service. Now you also should go talk to an expert, because if someone like me is getting 70, spending $20,000 a month, think if you have as a full-on PPC expert, the person's going to even do better than I.
Totally.
Right. So as a fractional CMO, do you help them find that expert?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually the way that I get engaged, CEOs come to me and they say, I've either failed at marketing for one of 3 reasons. Either people come and go, or I have too much data and I don't know what to do, or my team's not tracking. So it's usually one of those 3 things. And it usually has to do with their lead marketer that they don't trust, or they don't trust the data they're getting from that marketer. And I say, well, let's come in and do an audit and determine what's working and what's not working. And then I try to ask CEOs to slow down and do less, because less is more at the beginning. So if you're just great at Google search and save all the other energy and all the other expense that you're doing, whether it be on YouTube or it be on Facebook or it be on TikTok, slow down and do one thing at a time. And those are the areas where I start to outsource, right? Like my wife can do great campaigns, but if I were going to work with, like, I have 2 B2B clients right now. My wife would never take a B2B client. I would never pass a B2B client. So I went out and hired a person that I trusted. They came under me. They learned the holistic approach to marketing and strategy that I do, but brought in their PPC expertise. And those people would then work full-time under one of my clients.
Nice. Yeah. And that it is such a different world, right? Like B2B versus B2C. Yeah. Like, you really have to figure that out. And I mean, there's definitely a steep learning curve.
So just to laugh at that and to be, very vulnerable in the sense that I've never become an A+ PPC expert. I've always been a B+ good enough. My first one was in Google search. So I was selling $5,000 to $15,000 travel packages to South America per person. So Atacama Desert, Easter Island, Patagonia, Santiago, golf, things like that. Only on Google search. 100% of our revenue was Google search, 100%. And we were calling these people within an hour after they filled out a lead magnet, and we were booking deals north of $5,000 per person. And then the next thing that I did was I failed at Facebook under a different travel company. Not the same one as those high-end packages. And then I came back and I did it with the zoo. And then the next time I did it with B2B, enterprise software as a service in long-term care. So, like, I would say that I've never been greater than B+, but now I know enough to not make mistakes, and I know enough to hire the right person.
Right. And I think what I've always seen, and maybe, and I think this goes beyond just talking about PPC. This is just about business in general. And maybe even the restaurants that we were talking about earlier, is even if you're doing B+ work, so many others are doing C-, D, F, and that's what you're competing against.
Mhm.
And if you can get yourself to a certain point so that, you've learned enough to be a little bit dangerous, but also to be
Mhm.
competitive, then you're in pretty good shape because,
Mhm.
I mean, uh, dare I say there's not too many A players out there. There's
No.
not too many people getting the A+, even the A-, right?
Or Russ, to your point, even if you have somebody who's spending much more than you and has a little bit of unfair advantage from an advertising point of view, not from a branding point of view, if your reviews are better in the long run, you're gonna outperform them, right? Like I have a client who didn't want to spend money on local Google local services ads, and I said, look at your Google My Business review. You have 4.9. You're just gonna kill it. And of course,
Right.
they just kill it, right? We have competitors who try to spend more and more and more and more and more and more and more. The quality of the leads that come in, they're outstanding.
So
Mhm.
how much do you weigh reviews in your marketing strategy? Because I kind of come from a pseudo reviews background. A lot of the platforms out there, I realize, aren't necessarily 100% reliable in what people are saying on those sites. But it seems like that is very influential. And we know it's very influential for consumers when they're doing their research and trying to make a decision between, company A and company B. Like, how much do you weigh reviews into your marketing platform or
And to
marketing
be
strategy? Sorry.
Yeah, and to B to C, service or product, reviews matter to me if I'm willing to work with the client. And it doesn't matter to me that they have a lot or they know how to capture reviews, but their service and their product has to be good enough that I would go there as a customer. Because otherwise, for me, I don't enjoy as a strategist, as a fractional CMO, I don't really enjoy helping people sell more of something that actually isn't great. It's hard for me. It's not necessarily within my ethos. So for me, at the beginning, it's important. Now, in the long term, as from a revenue point of view, to help them make money, there are just some industries where reviews matter a lot less because there's scams out there, right? Like you can pay people
Yes.
on freelance.com and Fiverr to get fake reviews. And I have a friend who is in the Amazon world, and she does fake Amazon reviews all the time for free products, all the time, right? So
Yeah.
like, and we all trust Amazon, but there's a lot of scams on there. So what I try to do when I don't have the budget or I don't have the team to compete against a person who's doing that type of review game, spam world, is I get a lot better at as case studies and testimonials, and then I get really good at remarketing. So I might not be able to have 1,000 fake reviews on your Amazon, on your Amazon product, or I might not be able to have 200 fake reviews on your Google My Business profile. But if I can have Greg and Russ, who will give me a 10-minute case study interview, and then I can repurpose that into different angles, and then I can push that out on PPC, I can probably outperform the amount of money that you're spending to fabricate bad reviews on me and good reviews for yourself.
Nice. And I so bad want to combat those, to like figure out some way to be just like, how do we stop these? Like, get rid of these. But it's just something, it's one of those things now that you just have to deal with there's so many fake reviews out there for businesses.
That's a huge
Um,
percentage of what's out there on these
yeah,
platforms. It's a very large. I've read up to 40% are fake reviews.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't make it easy.
Well,
I
yeah.
had on a
How does a consumer use that information that they're finding on these platforms when 40% of them aren't real?
I think you have to check across multiple platforms. So, for
Yeah.
example, my wife and I are about to buy a new TV. We're pretty frugal. We're not heavy into technology. She said, "Hey, let's get something nicer. It's time. It's been a while." And so, I look at Consumer Reports, which I trust. I look at Wirecutter, which I trust. Then I go look at Amazon reviews, and then I'll go look at reviews on Costco. Some platforms require you to be a verified buyer. And then I look at those 4, and then I'll take, I'll make my top 3. I'll explain to her why they're my top 3, but they've all had to pass those 4 filters.
I so much of the time am looking at YouTube, because I feel like they're actually like, they're unboxing the product, they're using the product, they're showing you the uses of it. And then you can find a few people out there that you could start to trust, of like, okay, well, yeah, sure, I guess they're getting this, this TV for free, but they are being pretty honest about the reviews. So I always find that as a nice source as well.
Well, what's interesting is both of you use the word trust. Finding a resource that you can trust, right?
Right.
That's the key here, right? You got to find the platforms that you can actually trust, and there's some out there that you didn't mention that you trust, that is a little skeptical of what you're reading.
Totally. Yeah. And it's hard to find those places that you trust.
Yeah,
And even
it-
now, like, you do these Google searches, right? Like with AI searches, and the results, maybe not that great right now. Like, they're giving you something like, there's a bunch on, Reddit forums and whatnot of bad, what is it, Gemini, search results, that, like, how do you whatever, how do you make a pizza? Well, lots of duct tape and spackle, and that'll help you to make this delicious pizza. You even got that. So let's touch on that a little bit. I'm interested in AI and like where that's going. It's kind of, I guess, future trends. What are you seeing the impact of AI in the like digital marketing realm?
Well, it's a game changer. It's funny. It's funny you asked that, because I think you both live in the Bay Area. And my best friend lives in the Bay Area, and he's an attorney. And I asked him, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, not very long ago, how do you see AI impacting your work, and do you think that's overhyped? And he goes, oh, I don't think I've ever used AI. He goes, I feel like it's completely overhyped. And this is a guy who's very detached from social media on purpose. Like, he's grounded. He reads books. He journals. He's a dad. So he's not going to pick up on the fluff, right? And I said, I just can't believe it. I said, I think I use AI at least 60 minutes a day. And he goes, you got to be kidding me. I haven't used it 60 minutes in the last year. And I said,
Wow.
How is it possible that the legal world is so far behind? I said, it's going to be absolutely insane. There's going to be so few. I mean, it's definitely going to hurt attorneys' jobs. There's going to be a lot that's going to be done from AI. A lot of legal check that's going to be done. And I said, like, the way that I do reports, the way that I do audits, not only is it saving me time, it often does a lot of the things better than I would have done it on my own. Right? There's bias that I bring into my approach to research that sometimes is better, but sometimes is worse. Right? I might stay on a page and do more research on their conversion funnel or whatever it is, because they have more traffic. But maybe I don't realize that they have bad traffic. Maybe they're playing a black hat backlink game, and the one who has the best traffic, that has good quality traffic, is something that has half of it. I should have paid attention to their website. Well, like, there's some things that AI will pick up on that and will do better. And I mean, we use AI. I use AI in all of my Slack channels now. I use AI in my project management tools. My email writes the emails for me and lets me click on the 3 options that I want right now for all of my customers and my prospects. So I go into an email that comes from Russ. It reads Russ's email and it gives me 3 options, and I click on it, and then I just modify it. Yeah. But I mean, like I feel like 95% of the attorneys who probably aren't listening to us talk about this aren't going to know this for 3 years.
Right.
Well, my daughter is an attorney, and she is actually she uses AI to do a lot of research. I think where it gets a little interesting is my other daughter is in the psychology world, right? And there's a big concern there that people are just going to use AI for a personal therapist, and that may change that landscape. It's interesting, because when I use AI and I use different platforms to do research, it spits out different information with the same, prompt a lot of times. And I find that fascinating because you really do have to be very careful on what you're asking for to get what you're looking for, right? In the way you ask the prompt, the way you state it. And
Mm.
I'm just curious, how do you manipulate that? And you use it for your email, but do you use it for other content creation as well?
Mhm. Well, one of the ways that I do it, and this goes back to psychology, is I try to understand the person who's going to read my content, how they think, what their demographics are, how they approach the world, and then I'll ask my actual work. I will put my work into the prompt and say, now structure it in a way that a CEO without a marketing background, structure it in a way that the chief financial officer who doesn't understand what PPC is, explain to him why this budget and how it's going to have an impact on the revenue.
Nice.
And right
Yeah.
there, it does a lot better, right? As three marketers, sometimes we get stuck in our trenches and not only we use our jargon, but we end up thinking like ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
if you go to a conference, a CFO would think that the conference the three of us would go to, they would not only would they not understand, they would think it would be boring and they'd think we're not having any impact. So we have to translate things into their language. And I recently did a proposal for a big contract, at least for my agency, north of $40,000 a month. And the proposal that I sent in, the CEO said, it's been a long time since I've read a proposal that it's less than 2 pages, that I don't need to see any other competitors. I'm ready to go.
Wow.
When do we start? Right. And that was touched up by AI. How I create a lot of content. I mean, 50 plus original SEO, search optimized blog content per month for different clients. And I don't do any AI on that other than the outline. Then it's written by a real human, by real content. Then we will use AI to check on it to make sure that we have different voices, we have different buyer personas, and we'll run those ChatGPT buyer persona filters through the human written blog content. That will pass the test and we're good to go. I know that I'm going to be able to rank that in 2 to 9 months, depending on domain rank and the difficulty. What I will do with it then is I will use it again and I will translate that into an email that sounds like their buyer persona. I don't have that written by human. My blog's already 4 to 8 hours of work into it. Then I'll take that and say, write this into an email as if it were a journal entry going out to your audience. And that doesn't have to be SEO optimized. It just needs to sound like a person. I know that it's going to convert. My call to action is lined up. The hard work has already been done by a human. The AI is now just turning it in. Basically, the AI is repurposing it, is the way that I see it.
Yeah, I like that. That if anybody listening trying to figure out how to add AI into their content, rewind a little bit, listen to that again, because that I think is the exact approach. It's like, use the AI in the beginning to create that outline for you, to create okay, well, I don't know what to write about. It's a great starter, right? It's like you've got a template there to give you oh, these are the way that I should structure the article, and then have a human write it, because Google doesn't want to go read robots, right? Like Google doesn't want to have an AI created article. And also anybody else can do that, right? Anybody else can just go plug in and have ChatGPT. Like Greg said earlier, yeah, you're going to get different responses based on the prompts that you're putting in, and it could be the same prompt and you're going to get different responses. But that also means that most likely that article is already out there. So, if you're putting that human spend on it and actually putting the time in, I think that's where the work goes now. And then, yeah, having repurposed content come from AI, sure, why not? Because it's coming from human. It's coming from human generated content.
To
So it's doing those
piggyback on
first and last steps.
to piggyback on that, Russ, another example that I'll do, I have an amazing blog being written about an experience that at a convention, right? And we want it to be SEO optimized. It's talking about software. It's talking about partners of ours, whatever the case may be. I will then use AI, because it's well written, to tell me, write me a YouTube script for a first person video that I'm going to do.
Totally.
Tell me what the hook is, and it'll come back using that content. And I'll say, now go listen to the 150 podcast interviews that I've done, because I'm a podcast host. Go listen to the 100 that I've been as a guest, and put some color into that about who I am, because the YouTube's going to be done by me. Then I'll record that video and I'll embed that video in a couple different blogs related to that. And I try to growth hack the SEO plus the YouTube at the same time. And I'm using SEO, I'm using AI to improve or make my process more efficient. But the creativity starts at the beginning with a human who's making sure that's lined up with the voice of our buyer persona.
Totally.
That's the way
Totally.
to do it. I love
that's
what you're
great.
saying. Yeah.
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 You
Great
know,
strategy. Great execution.
yeah, I love it. I mean, it's like the problem's going to be, if we haven't listened to our podcasts, it's all going to be about like food and pickleball and things like that.
Pickleball.
But
Well, Peter plays pickleball, so
perfect.
he can write about pickleball firsthand.
Perfect.
I usually don't get to the third shot. I'm usually like the second shot guy.
Oh, okay. You're just driving that second shot for a winner, so you don't even need a third shot. I love it. Or you're taking second shot and then you're too drunk to take the third shot.
Here's what it is. I usually play with people that are 20 years older than I, and they are so good at placement. All they do is have me running around the court as the young guy trying to get me exercise, and then they dink it on me, and I'm worn out.
That's how, it doesn't take ChatGPT to figure that one out.
ChatGPT is not going to help you with dinking nor placement.
No.
You could make fun of me with ChatGPT though.
I was going to say one other thing. You're talking about catering emails to the buyer persona. I also like, and some of the stuff that, we're working on at Beeswax, the company that I'm with, is, adding AI and LLMs into your CRM or your customer database, so that now you can kind of learn from what, notes you've put in, interactions, logs, whatever, and then create something custom for them that you're able to send out as a business. Are you working on any of that with your clients, and have you seen success? Or
I did something similar, but not starting in the CRM, so it doesn't sound like it's exactly the same, but I think the result was similar. We engaged with a large client about 9 months ago, and the client was heavily dependent upon one type of buyer persona, and they brought me in to expand, so they weren't dependent upon that, and it was an investment client. And what we did there is we downloaded their HubSpot of their largest clients over the last 2 or 3 years. We separated any of the clients that they did not think were in that buyer persona, and then we manually enriched all of that data beyond the enrichment tools. So that means we went and looked at that person on LinkedIn, we stalked them a little bit on the internet, and we filled in extra information. How old is the person? Where do they live? What do we think their income is? We filled it in with extra data that the data services wouldn't. We try to determine where they probably heard about us. What are the Slack communities they're in? What podcasts do they listen to? If they were going to follow YouTube, what would they subscribe to? We took all of that information manually, and then we put in ChatGPT. We said, what were the ads that people would respond to if this was the buyer persona? What voice would they listen to? What's going to resonate with their needs and their pain points? So we did it a slower way, not starting the CRM, but it was very, very rewarding with what we got.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's super helpful when you add all those other bits of information into the single spot. And
it takes a little bit of elbow grease, right? You got to get in there. You got to get dirty. You got to do the work as well. You can't expect ChatGPT to, solve all problems. It doesn't work that way. Peter, I am super impressed. You've given our audience fantastic information, advice. If somebody wants to reach out to you and use your services, what's the best way?
Well, you can come find me at the zoo in Wichita, Kansas.
Right.
No, look me up on LinkedIn. I think I am the only Peter Murphy Lewis on LinkedIn. If I can help you in any way from a fractional marketing point of view, I do lots of free audits, lots of free calls. I do more than 100 a year, helping with startups or medium-sized companies. You can find me at strategicpete.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, so much for joining us. And I can't wait to come out to the zoo. I assume we're invited.
Yes, of course. Of course you're invited. Okay. And you're going to appreciate this. At the zoo, we have a beautiful mansion with a pool that overlooks the cheetahs. And in the back of that mansion, there is a tennis court. And there's only one person on this call who hand painted pickleball lines on it 2 years ago, and his name is Peter Murphy Lewis. And I challenge you both. Bring it.
Nice.
Oh, we're there. We are there.
All right, Wichita, Kansas. I'm sure great barbecue too, right? I mean,
great beer, great barbecue. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if the animals take offense to the barbecue.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah. I didn't tell you the rest of the story. We should wrap this up real quick. So I told you about sleeping in the hammock. I told you at 5 a.m. that I started to hear the animals. At 5:05, the sprinklers came on and shot me right in the eye when I was sleeping. So I had to crawl back into my living room and sleep on my sofa for the rest of my birthday. Happy birthday, Greg. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. And thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing DIY for Business. The subjects that we cover on this podcast are selected with the goal of helping your business grow. All of the information provided is opinion-based, and you might want to consult a professional to discuss your exact business situation. Greg and I want your company to succeed, and we are happy to take your questions. We'd also love to hear your suggestions for future episodes. Just head over to DIY for Business Podcast. The link is in the podcast description. We thank you again for listening and subscribing to DIY for Business, where you are not alone.